First off, talking about this new album, which
Hmm.
I had to make sure with the publicist I was talking about the right album because apparently you guys have like two or three already lined up because you are
I,
massively prolific.
yeah, it's actually I get confused myself to be honest, because vibrating and the record prior. No, now I'm getting confused too. We were going to record a double record,
Oh,
and and but we did record a double record, but we were going to release it as a double album, and we kind of recorded them in stages. Like one record was going to be more of like a slower ballady string arrangement type vibe, and the other was going to be a more of a rock riff based theme type record. And we ended up like picking just different and songs that just kind of whatever we were feeling at the time. So my brain kind of got my wires got crossed.
no
Sorry.
problem, no problem. But yes, talking about this one, and I love this album. Legitimately, I gotta say, not just. I mean, I went out and bought the vinyl because I wanted to make sure that, and I encourage
Cool.
everyone to either buy the vinyl or the disc because you get
Uh-huh.
so much more out of these
Yeah.
songs that way. Um, what struck me right off the bat is, you guys, I've seen other interviews and stuff, you come across as very mellow, affable people, and
Mhm.
yet you have songs like the opening track, Cut the Cord, which
Right.
have this raw, edgy feel, and
Yeah.
particularly your rhythm guitar has
Mhm.
this, real fabulous buzzsaw kind of effect. I'm
Yeah.
wondering what aspect of you are you digging into to bring forth that raw visceral response?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as a musician or artist, songwriter, all of those things, it's multifaceted, right? Like in the music that we're inspired by is all over the place too. Like I could sit and and be just as enthralled listening to some classical music or uh, some Mona Lisa and Mad Hatter's by Elton John, or I can listen to Metallica or ACDC, who's a huge influence on us. You just kind of tap into it and see where it goes. I couldn't envision doing that all the time, though. You know what I mean? It's like those little things come here and there, and in the appropriate time. Especially as you get a little older and get along in your career. It's like because you do have to play those things live on the
Yeah,
road. So it's like I don't know if I could do 2 hours of that every night, but
right.
I love it. I love when those songs do come though. Like it's a lot of fun. And on the past tour, we were kicking the set off with that song too, and it's a fun one to get it in motion, get it going.
Yes, no, I saw you when you guys came through Cary, North Carolina,
Okay, yeah.
at the end of last year, and that was a lot of fun. And again, the energy is there, and it's and what I love is that these new songs, they mesh so well with all the previous material.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering how much of that is conscious and how much of that is this is just our DNA.
Well, it's definitely our DNA, but I think over the years, like we allowed ourselves to creative freedom and luxury to go some different directions through the years. I mean, we're next year will be our 30th year, so
Hmm.
you kind of get bored of your own self at some point, right? So we've taken some trying to challenge ourselves, whether it's like just different instrumentation or just trying different approaches. You don't it's almost inevitable when you find yourself in some sort of creative box, but you have to consciously push outside of it. And I think we did that for a little while. And as of late, I would say on the past couple of records, I really don't know if it was conscious or it just was familiar and comfortable, and we felt more confident in it. We were recording kind of the way we used to, where we get in a room and hash through it and get as much recorded live as we can. I mean, as we feel comfortable with, and really challenge ourselves and be vulnerable in that without having to go through and you know track the drums, track the bass, and just stack it, which is fun too. I enjoy that as well. But there's some sort of thing, that the improvisational thing, or the real time moment when you go in the studio and you're being tracked and you're playing with the dudes in one room.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. So we've gone back to that feeling, and in hopes, because we've been playing a lot over the past few years, touring, and feel like our chemistry's locked in. So the goal is to kind of translate that onto tape. So that's been reinvigorating, right? For us, it's been inspiring to get back and take it from that perspective.
Yeah. No, I mean, funnily, one of the bands I work with, who's been a long time client, is the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and Kim Wilson. He talked about. He said, people sometimes get on bands for recording in the home now. But he said, but that's the perfect place to record, because it doesn't have that studio vibe. It's very relaxed. And he even went back to, if you go to those old Modern Records recordings of all these great blues artists that they did in like a YMCA in Memphis, and it's just got that great feel because they're all in the room playing together and stuff.
Yes, we've had the good fortune over the years we've recorded in some of the best commercial studios in the world, and we recorded our third album in a cabin, basically outside of Atlanta. We've kind of been all over the place. This last record, we in January we spent a little over a month in Palm Springs. We recorded at Elvis's house. He owned two houses. He owned Graceland, and he owned a house in Palm Springs. That was like his getaway. Yeah, and a few years ago we met. Who became a friend of ours who bought that house years back. And it's pretty much the way it was when Elvis was there. Not furnished wise, but and we asked him, does anybody ever work or record here? And he's like, no. I mean, Elvis was the only one that ever recorded there.
Okay.
And we put our gear in there. We just finished up a record recording in that house, which was a treat.
Well, all right. So I got to ask, how did that infiltrate your conscious or subconscious about, wow, we're following in the footsteps of the king, so to speak?
Yeah, I think there's on the front end, it was like this, you're in awe, you're, whether it's in your mind or not, you're in the presence of, obviously the dude, huge influence on us. And growing up, Elvis was a big deal, and it still is. So that was a little intimidating and awe-inspiring. And then I think after you kind of get settled in, we're back we're in the zone. But then every once in a while, we're in we're recording in his living room, which is actually where he recorded one of his gospel albums. And he had put in this sound proof tile on the roof to make it sound that was still there. There was a lot of stuff that was, so you catch yourself in moments where you're like, whoa, what is going on? You look back, the way it was set up. It was walk in the door to the left is a fireplace and huge windows, and you see his pool and overlooks the Palm Spring hills, the mountains or whatever. And you pinch yourself, every so often. But once you're in the musical zone, all those things just kind of dissipate, and we're just rocking, doing, recording, doing our thing.
And one thing I love about your albums is that it all sounds like you, but you cannot predict what the next song is going to be like, and there's always a great surprise for me. Well, I mean, I really do legitimately love this album, but for me, one of the really great surprises is the last track, Where Do I Go, which has such a different feel with the choruses and the mellotron and all these different inputs, but creating this great sonic pastiche, if I don't sound too hoity doing that. And I'm even wondering, because there's that break in the middle where suddenly you just hear this congestion of car horns and traffic sounds, and I'm wondering when does that occur to you guys of oh, this would be a great transitional element, and how did you put that in there?
I think some of that stuff is like it can be like a trial and error. It can be happy accidents kind of thing. And we're like, oh, let's go down. We're going down a path.
Yeah.
There'll be some sort of like, no, I don't want to say mistake because I don't really believe in that. But there's something that triggers a different thought. And you're like, oh, whoa, what if we go down that road to see? And that we usually try to challenge ourselves. So like, if there's an idea that no one is like demonstratively saying that's I can't support that. We will take the idea until it's like it either has a runway and takes off, or we just dead end. And it's like, nah, that's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of do that with just the songs in general. We've always, for the most part, we go in and like you're talking about the different variations of song, the styles of songs. We take each song, it's song by song,
Yeah.
and hopefully there's some thread of cohesiveness, like album per album, and that ties them all together, where it's a lyrical thing or there's some sort of sonic thing that we're into in that moment that kind of makes it that mark in time.
Mm-hmm.
But we've always been song servers, serve the song and see what that is, and a lot of times that's where those things come from. We could have a song like start the record with a cut the chord and finish with the song you're speaking of. So it's, we really do try to serve the song without letting our individual egos get in the way.
Yeah. And speaking of serving the song, rhythm guitar is a lot of what your type of music, it's the foundation, along with the drums and the bass. It's that
Right.
everything is built upon. When you're writing a rhythm part, how much of it is inspiration and how much of it is perspiration?
Well, the coming up with a part that fits, and I'm listening to what Johnny's doing on drums, or what Ed's melody may be, or what Jesse's playing or Will's playing. You kind of just want to find your spot, and so that's the inspiration part. Now playing it, and that's the dreaming up the inspiration. Now playing it well, it's more of this perspiration. Like, you have to, you got to, might take a few times to get it to where you're locked in. You hear one thing in your head, and then it's like, okay, let's do some trial and error here to see if we can flush that out. So it's definitely a mixture, and that's where the fun comes into play. Really, it's like, when it comes fast and easy, I get a little suspect. I'm like, but a lot of times that's that's the best. Those are the best ideas.
Yeah. And I'm interested. It was great to see you guys live, because you can see the interplay between all of you guys,
Right.
in the midst of a song. And I'm curious, I mean, besides the obvious, one plays lead, one plays rhythm, how would you describe how are you and Jesse maybe different in your approach to guitar?
Well, Jesse is a legitimate guitar player, and I'm not being self-deprecating, but he's an amazing guitar player, lead guitar player. I mean, to me, he epitomizes that. I mean, he could play my parts, whatever, or I couldn't play his parts. I mean, I'm not that type of player. I've never really aspired to be, but I love and respect it. And he was a drummer first. He was as a teenager, so he grew up. His rhythm is fantastic, and he's able to work that rhythmic and phrasing into his solos, which create. I think they're amazing. And his favorite guitar player is Joe Walsh, and Joe's one of my favorites as well. So we and Joe's like a perfect blend of kind of lead guitar, but riff rhythm, just super groove. So we share that in common. But I respect Jesse's playing immense. He's great.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that the first thing that popped in my mind is the opening to "Life's Been Good," and just yeah, and and you just you know, you feel it, you sing it. It's almost like a vocal at that point in time, you
Yeah.
know. So,
Hmm.
um, and now what I thought was interesting, I love delving into liner notes on all this.
Uh,
Your nephew sings backing vocals on one of
yeah.
the tracks.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what did that stir up as far as thoughts? I know she's young, of your own daughter and musical talent and what has become the family business.
Right. Um, well, yeah, you're right. My daughter, she's young, but she loves. You never can tell, like, but she loves music. Like, she's definitely. Uh, it's in there somewhere, but you can't tell if it's nature or nurture. I don't know. Like, we were raised. Our father was a voice major in college and went on to be a minister of music and then a preacher. And music was always around our house. Our mother played piano and our dad sang, so that we were just surrounded by it. So it was almost like I never really had a chance. It was just there. Um, but if that's the direction that she chooses to go, I would love nothing more. I would try to,
Mhm.
you know, give her some advice on getting into the music business, though, because it can get, gets a little tricky. But
Yeah, yeah.
I love it, man. I don't know, like, I'm a huge advocate for music, obviously, and musicianship, and even if it's not something you do professionally, I have some of my great friends, like, they don't do it professionally, but they love, just as an escape, just to either just put on a vinyl and listen to it, or they know how to strum or play guitar, and it's helpful. I encourage it.
Yeah, yeah. There are so many benefits. I myself am a completely awful drummer, but it's A, it's fun, and B, I feel like it made me a better listener. And you notice a little bit more, you appreciate
That's
a
a
little
great
bit
point.
more
Yeah,
about what's going on.
that's an excellent point. Yeah.
Um, and kind of along a mix of those ideas, this band has had changing personnel over the years,
Yeah.
and which, for some bands is really problematic and can mean a downfall. You guys have not only survived but thrived, um,
Mhm.
changing this personnel. And I was a fan of Johnny Rabb even before he joined you guys, and so
Yeah.
I thought that was a magnificent addition. But
Hmm.
what I'm wondering is, what is the secret to that success? What is the key to bringing in new members and having it work well?
A lot of it comes down to just luck, I mean, because there's tons of hyper talented musicians out there, right? But at the end of the day, you have to realize you're going to be spending a lot of time together that has nothing to do with music. You know what I mean? So that chemistry has to be there outside of, or ideally, it has to be there outside of um, the music. So it's like it has to become some sort of like brotherhood or family. And Ed and I and Will have always had that, because we kind of grew up together. Ed and I, obviously, blood brothers, but I've known Will as long as I've known anything. Like, our families were very close. He grew up, a couple blocks away. Um, so we've always treated it as family. So it's, if you have that element first, and then the musicianship is there, it can last. But even then, it's still tough. I mean, yeah, like you said, we've gone through a couple of different configurations, and I do feel like Ed and I talk about it often. We feel like the past 10 years have been some of the best, as far as like the cohesiveness of the band, the respect musically, you have to have that respect, that allowance for other ideas to come in. Egos have to be checked. I mean, obviously we have them, because you can't. I guess you can, but you're getting on stage in front of thousands of people and performing what your love, and that vulnerability, that ego is the kick in the ass to get you motivated to get out there and celebrate it. But I think it does just come down to like really just a friendship and a mutual respect.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I would say in a lot of cases, people use the word ego, but sometimes I think it's just a passion
Yeah,
to get up on that stage. There's a definite difference between a passion and a drive, to do
yeah,
this, to express yourself, and it can be done without ego. And I think in the same respect, there are people that get into even just fans get into heated discussions about music. It's not about ego, it's about
the
caring
passion.
and a passion for it.
Yeah, so I guess that, yeah, I agree with you. It's not the ego, it's not the arrogant side of ego. It's like this, the passionate side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get with that.
And then kind of an extension of all this, the history of rock and roll is littered, unfortunately, with siblings who started bands and then ended up hating each other. Uh, Oasis, the Kinks, Heart, it
Yeah,
goes on and on. I'm very glad that has not happened with this band. And thus, again, I'm wondering what your advice is for making that work.
yeah. It's we're very fortunate in that light. And not to say that we haven't had issues. Obviously, I mean, we've been together for 30 years, and Ed and I both have pretty strong opinions about things. A lot of it's same destination, just different approaches and different paths to get there. So we've had to like get to a place where, back to that mutual respect thing. It's like,
Mhm.
I'm hearing you, I'm listening to you, and then you feel listened to. Um, and you have to come to some degree of compromise at some point. And um, at some point, he just finally gives up and has to listen to me. He knows I'm right. I think it's like that. Really, it's almost like a marriage. You've got to
Hmm.
like, you got to find that middle ground, or you're just gonna. And we've been through some of those tough times where it's like, I don't know if this is worth it. I don't know, because we're not figuring that out.
Hmm.
And you take a little time, you get some perspective, and you go, oh yeah, actually, I love that dude. We're cool. I might not have liked him for a little bit, or vice versa, but yeah, it's more fun because all of us individually can go do our own music and produce it and write it, and it's just more fun. I really do. I enjoy doing it with him,
Yeah.
and the other dudes. I think just fundamentally, it just kind of boils down to that. To not to oversimplify it, we have a good time. We laugh. We're good buds.
Yeah. And the I think there is a definite art to rhythm guitar that doesn't get acknowledged, because it's often the soloist, the lead that gets a lot of, the
Right.
ink, let's say,
Yeah.
and the cheers and all that kind of stuff. And, for some of them, legitimately, I am in awe of many of those players.
Mm.
But there's something to the art of rhythm guitar, as you say, with like a Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
you know um there's elements to me of Tom Petty's playing in this album,
Yeah.
and the way he sets things up. um what for you has been the most challenging part about growing as a rhythm guitarist?
Um, it's a tricky one, because you don't want, like, some of my favorite ones. Malcolm Young's probably my favorite rhythm guitar player. Malcolm or Keith would be really. I mean, Keith plays solos and stuff, but he would. If you ask him, he consider himself a rhythm guitar player. A lot of it is just like you don't. Your job's to stay out of the way. You're the glue in between the bass, drums, and lead. I mean, you're just kind of like fitting in and getting out of the way, knowing, maybe that's it, like knowing when to get out of the way, when to shut
Hmm.
your proverbial mouth, the guitar, and then knowing when to step in too. Like it's a little cliche to say it, but some of the best notes are the ones that are never played, right? So it's like just knowing your role. And there were probably times where you kind of get a little ego-y. It's like, I'm not getting enough attention kind of thing, but I've never truly had that much of an issue with that. It was really more the musical thing. Like, all right, let's just figure out how to get in, get out. If I have to hold it down, I'll hold it down for however long it is. Just be back to the serving the song, be appropriate for the song.
Okay. And from your perspective, what was the most challenging song to do on this album?
It's funny enough. I mean, it may have been Cut the Cord because it was so so damn up tempo. We've been doing the rock. We're always throwing in, and when they come, their rock songs are just a little harder to find, to write, for us anyway. I feel like the mid tempo ones they kind of like seem like they come a little more often, but maybe Cut the Cord for real because it's like a downstroke kind of punk thing, and like my right hand rhythm is needed to get worked up for that. And I normally, like, because of what I do, like when we're playing live or about to go on stage or whatever, I rarely have to warm up because I'm not doing the lead
running the fretboard. Yeah.
All right. So I'm just like, maybe I need to do a little warm up on this one just because we're going to get off. So.
Yeah, because also I'm assuming like Johnny, I haven't seen, but I'm assuming he's got a practice pad constantly going.
Oh yeah.
Stage, so you don't walk out cold as far as that goes.
No. Ed does his warm ups and that's kind of what we'll do. Like he just sits around and strums and sings, and we'll just write, just kind of hang out, and everybody just kind of maybe he's singing along or Jesse's playing along. So it's just like getting that vibe going. Like just talking like pre-show stuff. And then the other thing, as far as that goes, is like just making sure we don't take ourselves too serious. Like we got to have a couple of jokes. Somebody's busting somebody's balls for something, and just take it down and like don't take this thing too serious. Let's just go have fun and enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that just because many years ago, back when I worked in radio and stuff, a friend of mine, this lady named Dusty Street, who's best known for her work at KROQ in Los Angeles. She at the time was at a rock station in Las Vegas, and you guys came through with Van Halen, and I remember you went in and did a quick interview spot with her, and I remember, because I asked her, I said, oh, how they were. And she's like, afterward, they were like so nice. They're like, oh, are you going to come to the show? And she was like blown away that, I mean, granted, it was just the start and you were very young and very new, but there, was like a legitimate request. There wasn't that rock star ego to it.
Right.
And that really struck her as someone who's dealt with a lot of musicians and a lot of egos over time. And I don't know, it just kind of occurred to me that, like even then you guys kind of stood out as, okay, we're not going to be the posers.
No, that never felt authentic to us. It's never been us. And in moments where it has been, like here and there, the fact that we've grown up together and known each other for so long, even like John Rabb and Jesse, it's like, feel like I've known those guys my entire life. And Jesse grew up like 20 miles from us. So we're just rooted in that kind of thing. And it's like, there's accountability, there's checks and balances. And so we hold one another accountable because that kind of thing doesn't feel good. Like I want to walk away feeling like, a normal, happy, appreciative person to be able to do what I do. Right? It's like I'm not anything special when it comes to in the grand scheme.
Oh, cool. No, it's a great attitude.
Elvis and Priscilla stayed at on their honeymoon. They stayed in Palm Springs at at another house that was sold last year, but this house was the one that Elvis actually owned. Like he and Priscilla bought it, and that was, he would spend his holidays and his birthday. He spent his last birthday in that house. In fact, it was a strange. We were there. The way that we had the control room was set up in Lisa Marie's room, and then down the next room over was Priscilla's, and the back room was Elvis's. And we were actually in the night that Lisa Marie passed, that the ceiling collapsed in that room, and
oh my God,
water, because it was raining, because it was rough, bad rains that night.
Yeah.
And poor, we were able to save the equipment and all that stuff, but it was like just kind of uncanny that it happened to be on the same day, which whatever, but
right. Yeah, that is a little
eerie.
Yeah, a little eerie. Well, actually, it does kind of all make me wonder, though. I mean, because I think we're about the same age, and I think, I know you guys are into music and its history, but I think it's kind of it would be surprising for, I think, a lot of people to find out how into Elvis you are, that you were interested in going to his house and recording there. And
well, he was so our dad was a Southern Baptist preacher. That was kind of his main career, what he had worked up to, but music, and that was his thing when he was a young boy, and Elvis was his idol. And that kind of came through to us. Like we were allowed to listen to no rock and roll on Sunday, because that was the Lord's day, it was the Sabbath, and except for Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis of all Jerry Lee. I don't know how righteous he was. Right. But yeah, Elvis was it was a big deal in our childhood, and
yeah. So almost like this seeped into your senses through osmosis, kind of.
It did, and so lots of along with many other. I mean, Ed's biggest influence, along with Elvis, but as a teenager, his biggest influence was Elton. So then I always describe our music as like the two mainstay. Well, Elvis would be in there, but the two mainstay is Elton John and AC/DC, and it's kind of like this melodic blend of riffy kind of stuff with a melody, a nice little melody on top.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, like yeah. I'm just picturing like Angus doing guitar, and then Niles on drums, and this mishmash of the two bands.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody's done it these days.
Yeah.